stem cells. Now, stem cell also is a very important topic both from prelims and mains perspective. Let's try to understand what the meaning of stem cell is. Stem cell basically act as the raw material for any cell. Let's say when you talk about the human body, in the human body we know that we have different types of cells, correct? You have the red blood cells, you have the white blood cells, you have the nerve cells, you have the brain cells. So there are n number of different types of cells that we have. But at its origin, all the cells start from the same point. They are all stem cells. From there on, they grow according to the location where they are. So for example, a cell which is near the heart will develop into a heart cell. A cell which is near the brain will develop into a brain cell. But at the beginning, at the origin, they all were something very similar. And this is what stem cell is. So that's why what we can say is that stem cells are raw material for any cell. Every cell will start from a stem cell, and then when they start growing, they develop into the different kinds of cells, depending on their location, depending on their function. So this is what stem cells are. Now, okay, fine, stem cells are raw material for any cell, but why so much fuss about stem cells? Why do we keep talking about stem cells? Why do you see so many articles about uses of stem cells? The reason is the properties that we see for the stem cells. So first of all, we are saying that stem cells are nothing but raw material for any given cell. So every cell starts from a stem cell and then they develop into something, correct? So this is what stem cells are. Raw material for other body cells. They are considered raw materials because all the other cells with specialized functions are generally from these cells. All right. Now, what I'm asking is that why are we studying about stem cells and why are stem cells so talked about? Why do we see so much fuss around stem cells? The reason is their properties. The kinds of properties that we see for stem cells, and specifically there are two properties that become very important. One is their ability of self-renewal, and second is their ability to specialize. Now, what do we mean? When we talk about stem cells, what we are saying is that they are like raw materials for any given cell. Now, before they specialize into a given cell, they undergo many cycles of cell division. That you have a stem cell which does not have any specific function. It keeps on dividing. So it undergoes multiple levels of cell division before it actually starts to specialize. So this is something which is very unique for stem cells. This is one of the important properties of stem cells, that they create a lot of their copies before they start to specialize. Now this property becomes very important. Just hold on why they become important. We'll have a discussion on that. So this is one property which is very important, which stands out for stem cells. The second property is their ability to specialize. Now what we are saying is that they are all the same. They look all the same. They have all the same properties, but depending on their function and depending on their location, they specialize into something. They may develop into a brain cell, they may even develop into a skin cell, they may develop into a nerve cell, a white blood cell, a red blood cell, anything, correct? So they may develop into anything. So they have an ability to specialize. So that's the second property that makes it very important for stem cells and makes them very crucial for medical science in general. So let's try to understand why these two properties matter. What is the importance of these two properties in the field of medical science? So first of all, talking about the ability of self-renewal. So what we are saying is that ability of stem cells to go through numerous cycles of cell division while maintaining the undifferentiated state is called as self-renewal. Now, when they have this ability of self-renewal and the fact that they keep on creating a lot of copies of themselves, what happens in this process is that you have a lot of copies of stem cells available with you. If you have to use them for medical science purposes or any treatment or any therapy, for that you would need a lot of copies of these stem cells. And the good news is that because of their property of self-renewal, they are available in large quantities. So that's the first reason why this particular property becomes very important in the medical therapies or in general medical science. The second is their ability to specialize. Let's say we are talking about stem cell therapy for cancer. What happens in cancer? In cancer, the cells. Normally what would happen with the cells? That the cells will keep on dying, and as the cells die, these cells will be replaced with another new cell. Correct? So by the time, for example, I finish this particular sentence, lakhs of cells in my body would have died, and they would have been replaced with new cells working in a similar manner at the same location. In cancer, what happens is that the cell does not die, and there is an uncontrolled growth of the cell. Now, what happens is that when there is an uncontrolled growth of this cell, and especially if this is malignant, what is malignant? We'll have a discussion in the disease chapter. If it is malignant, it will also start to spread to other parts of the body, and cancer will start to spread to other cells, and this will become the state which becomes very, very dangerous for somebody. Now, how can stem cells be used? We know that stem cells will have the ability to specialize into something. So if, let's say, we have a bunch of cells which have become cancerous, if they, let's say, are replaced with a new set of cells, all right, if they are replaced with a new set of cells which are stem cells, we know that if stem cells are placed in an area from where they had to grow into a certain kind of cell, they would do that. Correct? So these stem cells which have replaced the older cells, they will keep on replacing the older cells, and they will act as a normal cell. Correct? They will behave like a normal cell. They will grow into the kind of cell they were supposed to. So this speciality, so this property of specializing into something is very, very unique, and that's why they can be used. They can be used where we want to replace a certain cell. They can be used where we want to modify a certain kind of cell. We can use them when, let's say, you come across a genetic disease where the cells are malfunctioning. So if stem cells are used there, these stem cells will grow into normal cells. They will not grow with those kind of deformities or those kind of issues. So that becomes a very, very important point for the stem cells. So that's why this ability to specialize is also very, very important. Now, their property of specializing into something also varies according to what kind of stem cell we are talking about. And in general, there are 3 different types of stem cell. Let's try to understand what they are. So they have ability to self-renew, and they have ability to specialize. Type of stem cell based on their source is embryonic stem cell. Now, when we talk about embryonic stem cell, what does it mean? It is coming from the embryo. Alright? It's coming from the embryo. Now, this is a kind of a cell which will have ability to specialize into a lot of different types of cells. Just think about an embryo. Just after fertilization, when the embryo is in its formative stages, at this point of time, the embryo does not look like a normal human. Correct? At this point of time, you cannot differentiate between eyes, ears, nose, mouth, tongue, etc. Right? They are still in their process of development. So at this point of time, the stem cells which are present in the embryo, they have an ability to specialize into many different types of cells. Alright? They can specialize into ears, they can specialize into eyes, they can specialize into stomach, they can specialize into many different types of cells. So that's why the embryonic stem cells have a superior quality of specializing as compared to adult stem cells. Adult stem cells will not be able to do that. They will be very restricted in that. But when you talk about embryonic stem cells will have the ability to specialize into a lot of different types of cells. So embryonic stem cells are stem cells derived from the undifferentiated inner mass of a human embryo. At this stage, an embryo is called blastocyst and has around 150 cells. Now, these embryonic stem cells are also called as pluripotent stem cells. Why pluripotent? We'll have a discussion on why pluripotent. Just know this, that they can become any type of cell in the body. They have an ability to specialize into many different types of cells. So that's why they are called as pluripotent stem cells. So thus these stem cells can be used to regenerate or repair diseased tissue or organs. So this is the first type of stem cell, that is embryonic stem cell. After this you have adult stem cell. Now adult stem cell is the kind of stem cell which can be found in the adult. Basically these are the stem cells which can be found in a human after birth. After birth, when specialization of organs have happened, after that the kind of stem cells that you observe in the body, they are called as adult stem cells. So adult stem cells have a very limited ability to specialize, because, for example, the stem cells that are there near the heart, they will not develop into brain cell. The stem cells which are near the brain, they will not specialize into a heart cell. So it will completely depend now on location. They become very specific. They are mainly found either in bone marrow or in fats, but they will have very restricted ability to specialize. They will not be able to specialize as freely as the embryonic stem cells. So that's the basic difference between adult stem cell and embryonic stem cell. So for example, if you look at this sentence, bone marrow stem cell may be able to create bone or heart muscle cells, but not nerve cells. So that's why they would have a limited ability to specialize as compared to embryonic stem cell. Then after this, you have another kind of stem cell which is called as perinatal stem cell. So perinatal stem cells are derived from the perinatal tissue source, such as the umbilical cord blood, umbilical cord, placenta, amniotic fluid, and so on. So these are the stem cells which are found just after the embryonic stage, before the stem cells or before the fetus has completely developed into a human. In this particular stage, you have perinatal stem cells. So perinatal stem cell also have a limited ability to specialize. They do not have specialization as much as the embryonic stem cells have. So that's why, as far as the ability to specialize goes, the most flexible of all will be embryonic stem cell, followed by perinatal stem cells, and then followed by adult stem cells. All right. So if we go by ability to specialize, we start with embryonic, then comes perinatal, and then comes adult. So just remember this. All right. Now just remember one thing. Although we are talking about embryonic stem cell, adult stem cell, and perinatal stem cell, all in the context of humans, but just remember that when we talk about stem cells are not only found in humans. They are not only found in humans, they will be found in other animals as well. They will be found in other animals, and they will be found in plants also. They will be found in plants also. Wherever there is a cell, wherever there is a specialization of the cell, remember that in the early stages of that development, there will be a stem cell. The way of propagation of the stem cell and development of stem cell into a specialized cell will be very different across the species, but every organism, or especially every multicellular organism does have a stem cell. Whether it is a plant, whether it is different kinds of animals. You talk about humans, you talk about reptiles, you talk about amphibians, you talk about birds, anything. All right, every one of these organisms, they do have stem cells in them. Now, another way to look at the different types of cells is on the basis of totipotent, pluripotent, and multipotent. Now, totipotent, toti basically is coming from total. So this is a kind of stem cell which will be able to specialize into anything. That is, any kind of cell in the body. These kind of stem cells will be called as totipotent. So the kind of stem cells that you have just after fertilization, in the first two stages of, or the first two steps of cell division, at that point of time, you have totipotent stem cells. That is, these are the stem cells that can specialize into anything. So even just before embryonic stage, just about the time when embryo is just starting to develop, at this stage, you have totipotent stem cells. So totipotent can be specialized into all cell types in the body. So embryonic stem cells within the first two divisions after fertilization are the only cells that are totipotent. So just after the first two cell divisions, just up to the first two cell divisions after the formation of embryo, that is where you have totipotent stem cells, meaning that it has an ability to specialize into anything, all cell types. That's why toti, coming from total, that is everything. Then you have pluripotent. So pluripotent basically comes from plural. These are the kinds of stem cells, normally the embryonic stem cells, where they have the ability to specialize into almost everything, but not everything. They are the ones which are formed just after the first two cell divisions, first two cycles of cell division. After that, you have pluripotent. And then after that, you have multipotent, multipotent coming from multiple. So they have a limited ability to specialize. So that's why we are talking about adult stem cells, but also perinatal stem cells. They both will be considered as multipotent cells. So they can be developed into more than one cell types, but their ability to specialize is more limited than pluripotent stem cells. So just remember that totipotent is embryonic, but in the only in the first two cell division cycles. Pluripotent, embryonic, but just after first two cell division cycles. And multipotent, adult as well as perinatal stem cells will be called as multipotent. Alright, now if you talk about the uses basically come from the two properties, correct? They come from these two properties that we have discussed. So on that basis only we look at different kinds of applications of stem cells. The first is an increased understanding of how diseases occur. How would we do that? Just think of this. The diseases that develop in a particular kind of cell, it starts after the development of the cell starts. So if we are able to detect how the development from the stem cell stage to the specialized cell is happening, and what was the event which led to the formation of a disease or led to some kind of a disease or deformity in the cell, if that can be noticed, if that could be found out, then in that case study of stem cells will be very helpful in replacing these kind of problems. So that's why increased understanding of how diseases occur can happen with studying or further understanding of the stem cells. So when we watch them develop, when we watch them mature into a certain kind of cell, we would understand how the disease happened or when the disease happened in a given cell. Then after that, generate healthy cells to replace diseased cell. Now this is something that we discussed, and this is something which is also called as regenerative medicine. So what do we do here? We look at the cells which are causing the problems. We replace these cells with healthy stem cells. And these stem cells will grow and mature into normal cells. Thus, they will replace the cells which were the source of the problem. So that's why this is also called as regenerative medicine. So stem cells can be guided to become specific cells that can be used to regenerate or repair diseased or damaged tissues in people. And there are multiple diseases where it can be helpful. For example, type 1 diabetes, in spinal cord injuries, in Parkinson's disease, even in cancer, we see that stem cells can be used for this particular property or this particular reason. Then to test new drugs for safety and effectiveness. Now, let's say any drug, any medicine, or even any vaccine is about to be launched. Before that, it will go through an intense process of clinical trials. But before these drugs and vaccines can enter the human trial stage, they should have been tested for their efficacy, for their security, so that we know for sure that they will not cause any harm or any issue in the individuals who are getting these drugs or these vaccines. This is again where stem cells will come into the picture. Because if the same test, instead of carrying it on a human trial first, if the same test is also stem cells, we can understand whether or not there is any problem caused by these drugs and vaccines on these stem cells. Because if there is anything happening to these stem cells and they are not able to develop properly because of the side effects of these drugs, then in that case we would know that there is something wrong with the drug or the medicine. So that's why they can become a very effective tool even for testing of the drugs and the vaccines before they are launched into the human trial phase. So that's why this is also where they can be very, very helpful. Also, because these stem cells are going to specialize into one kind of cell or the other, that's why instead of testing it out on the specialized cell, the same tests can be carried out on the stem cells as well. And the stem cells will also show the same result that a particular specialized cell would have shown. So before using new drugs in people, some types of stem cells are useful. Some types of stem cells are useful to test the safety and quality of investigational drugs. So for example, nerve cell could be generated to test new drugs for nerve disease. Test could show whether the new drug has any effect on the cell and whether the cell were harmed. So this is what I was saying, that there are two ways in which you can look at this. One, before human trials, and second, because they will grow into similar cell types. So that's why these are specifically two reasons why you would be able to test the new drugs for safety and effectiveness. Now there are some concerns with regards to stem cells as well. One is the ethical issue, and this is something very similar to what we discussed in the cloning part as well. That here also you are talking about embryos. We discussed that embryos are better suited to for any medical purpose as compared to the adult stem cells, because embryonic stem cells have a better ability to specialize. So that's why they can be used in a variety of medical therapies. So if we start doing that, if this is allowed and this is not banned by the governments across the world, then we don't know how it will be misused. Maybe pregnancies will only happen to make sure that they get the embryos for generation of stem cells. So these kind of dangerous paths would be taken. So that becomes a very specific issue and ethical issue as well. And as we had discussed that for many cultures, the life begins at conception. So if we are playing with the embryos, if we are using the embryos for medical research and development, then in that case we are actually killing the embryos, which is against many of the cultures across the world. And then there's the problem with the adult stem cell, because adult stem cells have a very limited ability to specialize. So that's why they can't be used for everything. You can't use them for every single purpose that you want. So that also becomes a challenge, that embryonic stem cells should not be used ethically speaking, and adult stem cells have very limited capability to specialize. So that's why that also becomes a challenge while using stem cells. So these are few of the issues related to stem cells. Now stem cells, application wise, you will find that across the spectra, in especially in the medical science, they are being used for one reason or the other, one therapy or the other. If you come across any news article related to stem cell or stem cell application or stem cell therapy, please make sure that you do read about them, that you do make it a part of your notes. Whatever comes before your examination, please make sure that you do read through whatever you get across the newspaper, whether you are reading the Hindu or you are reading the Indian Express, wherever you get anything related to stem cells, make sure to make a note of it. We will anyway be covering these through the webinars and your daily news analysis, etc. But still, if you come across something, make sure that you know it, because this is going to be a very, very important topic both for your prelims as well as your mains examination. Now, let's have a look at one question that had come from the stem cells in your prelims examination. With reference to stem cells, frequently in the news, which of the following statements is or are correct? 1. Stem cells can be derived from mammals only. Again, this is wrong. We had discussed about this, that wherever you have a multicellular organism, wherever there is specialized cell, there will be a stem cell. So that's why mammals only is wrong. So statement number 1 is wrong. So A cannot be your answer and D cannot be the answer. Now you have 3 here also, you have 3 here also, so definitely 3 is correct. What is 3? Stem cells can be used for medical therapies. This is true. This can be done. We have discussed about this. We discussed about Parkinson's disease, cancer, etc., where they can be used. So statement number 3 definitely is correct. Now it comes down to statement number 2. Stem cells can be used for screening new drugs. We had a discussion on it, correct? One of the important applications of stem cell is that they can be used to test new drugs. So that's why statement number 2 is also correct. So C is also gone. We are left with B, that is 2 and 3 only.